Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the one-click updates. In this unique training, I'm going to show you how to automatically push updates out to hundreds or thousands of users in a single click, and also have those users update their applications also in a single click. It's going to be an incredibly amazing training. I can't wait. Let's get started. Alright, thanks so much for joining us today. I've got a really unique and epic training, something you've never seen before, something I've never shared before. Whether you're creating your applications on your own, selling them, whether you're creating your applications for your coworkers, or whether you're just simply creating your applications for a single customer, I got an amazing training. I'm going to show you how to create this one push update so you can push your updates to one or as many users as you want and have them automatically update their own applications in a single click. Now that's a tall order, but I can't wait. I'm going to walk you through every step. By the end of this training, you're going to know exactly how to do just that and a whole lot more. If you like these trainings, I create them each and every Tuesday. So don't forget to click the subscribe button below and make sure you click notification icons. That'll alert you each and every week to my trainings. I don't want you to miss a single training. I create these trainings free, and of course, if you like this application, you can download it for free, including the links down in the description. Everything's for free. I've got one for email, one for Facebook, so there's no problem. You can get that for free. If you do like these and you want to help support our work here, I would really appreciate it. I've got 150 applications for just $56. That's just 37 cents a piece. I'll include the link down below. I'd really appreciate that. That's 150 workbooks. You can't get that anywhere else. An amazing template of my best workbooks. All right, let's get started. I've got so much to show you on this training. So what is the idea? What do I want to do? I want to take this application. This is called the one-click updates here. And basically, this is going to be our update manager application. This is going to control all of our updates and also save all of our updates. So let's say we have an application. For example, I'm going to pull up an old customer manager application, and let's say I've got an update on that. I want to create an update, let's say version 1.6. So I'm going to do that, and then what I want to do is I want to push that update. So all right, so let's say I've got this application. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the application. I'm just going to create that before I push that out. So let's go ahead and pull up the customer manager application. Here I've got this old customer application. I'm going to show you that. And now let's say I want to make some changes. A quick way to make a theme change. Let's just change the colors of this. Change the theme to something very different. All right, how about this theme right here? Okay, so that's different. Now I'm going to save this. Let's just call it as 1.6. So I'm going to do File, Save As. Let's say we've got a brand new version. We're going to call this 1.6. So we'll give it a different name. Call it 1.6. Okay, that's a better one. So now I've got this, and now we can close that out. We've created a separate version update. Now let's go ahead and browse for that version. I want to browse even for that unique version. So I'm going to upload that, and that's called 1.6. That version, I'm going to push it out, and here we can have some logger updates or details of our update. Usually those are logger bug fixes or feature updates or feature additions. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button. I'm going to push that update. So that's going to push it out automatically based on the details that I've just added in. It's going to push that back, and we have a notification that says our updates pushed successfully. So the customer is going to get their application, and now let's say they've got the older version. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go into the customer manager. This is our original one. Notice this is one without this, and what they're going to do is they're going to run a macro. I'm going to go into the macro, and I'm going to run that macro, and you're going to see that, and then I'm going to walk you step by step. So I have something called updates, and the first thing what we'll do is when they launch their workbook, we're going to run this macro called check for updates. Of course, I'm going to walk you step by step, but I'd like to see how it works right away. So we'll click check for updates. Now all they need to do is just run this. That's going to run automatically, and it says that version 1.6 is available. They get this notification automatically only when there's an update. They click that update, goes through it automatically, is going to download that application for them, automatically going to update that application for them, and then they're going to get a notification. So it's going to go through that, it's going to update their data, it's going to update all the database, and boom, there you have it. Now their application is up to date, and then this message will be hidden. And there you have it, and that's it. So now you see this newer version has these newer colors, so it's automatically updated. Obviously this message wouldn't be here, it'd be hidden, so that would be obvious. So the one we saved had this message, but this message will disappear. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, how to push push those updates automatically. And it could be, your users could be anywhere in the world. So let's get started because I can't wait. So now you get an idea, and this could be as many customers as you want around the world. It doesn't matter. There's only a few requirements, and one of the things is gonna require Dropbox, because that's a great way to share that. So make sure you have the free application. It's www.dropbox.com. It's free up to 2 gigabytes. So it's a great application. I've been using it for years. So that's a part of the requirement. So how do we do that? Well, this is going to be in 2 portions, right? The first portion is we've got some code on our application that's going to push that update. Just 2 macros, one to browse it and one to push it. Very, very simple. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use to pull the updates in their own individual applications. I'm going to show you how to add these 2 macros to any application you have, and it's going to automatically check for new updates, and if there are new updates, it's going to pull them. So how do we do this? Well, of course, we're going to use some macros, and we're going to use this amazing tool that I've been talking about the last few weeks called Integromat. As you've seen, Integromat is an amazing tool. I'm going to walk you step by step. We're just going to use 2 scenarios. So Integromat is a great way to allow automatic functions, automations to use different software. For example, this one we're going to use a webhook, and I'll explain what that is, to Dropbox, to Rebrandly, which is going to create a short link, and then we're going to get a response back, and then into Google Sheets we're also going to use. So let's go through this one by one. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to show you obviously the browse. How do we browse for an application? That's pretty simple. So let's go into that and go over that macro. This particular training, we're not going to do much on the screen. There's not much going on the screen here, nothing interesting on the screen. All the amazing things are inside the back end, so that's what I want to show you. So let's get into that, into the Developers tab. If you don't have the Developers tab open, of course, you can find it located here in the options, depending upon what version of Excel you have. Customize ribbon and the developer tab right there. I know I do talk so fast sometimes. I get so excited on these trainings, so feel free to slow down the speed if this is a little bit too quick for you. It's just that I do have a lot to cover. I try to keep these within an hour. Oftentimes we go over, rarely do we go under, but I'll try my best to keep it under that. All right, so let's get into it. Into the developers, Alt F11 is a shortcut to get you there. And now I've got 2 modules. Now keep in mind, I've got one module called Application Update Macros, and this is the one that's going to simply update inside your applications. And I've got update macros. Let me rename that. I'm going to rename that. This is for, we'll call this push. I'm going to rename that so it's a little bit more clear for you. We're going to call this push macros, because it's actually pushing the version out. Okay, so it's a little bit more clear. And then what I want to do is I also want to have one called pull macro. Pull now that pull macro, we're actually pulling it. Pull macros, okay? We're going to actually pull that, and that's the one, this is the one that you'll want to drag and drop inside your workbook, or just simply rewrite the macro as I have it. So, but basically this is the one that will stay in your one-click update. This will in your update manager application. Now, whether you're creating your own or you're going to use mine with the free download and the link below, either one. So keep in mind, this pull macros, we don't run these macros. I'm only including this module so you can take it and drag it into any workbook, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. So we're going to focus on the push macros, and that's the macro that's going to take your updated version and push it to somewhere. And basically what I want to do is I want to make it available for somebody to download in just one click, and not only download it in one click, but install it in the same click. And I'm going to show you it's not that difficult, so I'm going to show you step by step. Even if you're relatively new to VBA, that's okay. We're going to go every step, and I'll try to go slowly. First thing, on this particular macro, all we're doing is going to pull up a specific application. I want to click it and browse for a specific application, click OK. Once that happens, I want to put the full file path here. I want to take the name of that application and put it here into E6. And I want to set the updated onto the current date and time, and then I want the user to be able to set whatever version number they want. And of course, I want to put the change logs. Normally, you'd have this information clear out to you. I just didn't have it because I didn't want to retype it during the training, but normally you can have this information clear out too. So let's take a look at that browse macro here. We're going to dimension the app file as a file dialog, and then we're going to set that app file as a file dialog file picker, right? We want to pick specific files, so the best way to do that is use this file picker. And then we're going to work with it. So what are we going to do with that app file? We're going to give it a title. We're going to browse for application. Of course, there's going to be no filters on this. They could really use any type of application. It doesn't have to be Excel. It could be really anything, although we're working with Excel. So just browse for application. We don't allow multi-select. We're just going to focus on one single application here. If for some reason they canceled out of it, we need to account for that. So in this case, if the dot show does not equal -1. It's going to be -1 if they make a selection. But if they don't make a selection, that's not going to be -1. We want them to skip all this and just go out of it, no to selection. But of course, assuming that they have made a selection, all I want to do again is those two things. I want to take actually three things. What we're going to do is we're going to take inside E4, we're going to take that entire path and we're going to place that right in E4. And then of course, I only want the name of the file, the raw name of the file. I want to put that into E6. So the best way to do that is to get the directory of that. So inside the code, we're just going to adjust that. We're going to take the directory of that selected item and we're going to place that in E6. And then in E8, all I want to do is put the current date and time. Now is going to do that. It's going to allow us to do that. Okay, great. So we have that. Now everything's in there. So now what I want to do is I want to click this button here and I want to take that application that's in Dropbox, and keep in mind that it's got to be in Dropbox. And the best way to do that is to make sure that we've mapped our Dropbox folder. And I've done that here. So what I want to do is I want to map the Dropbox folder. Remember, Dropbox is a required component. However, you could probably use OneDrive or Google Drive as long as you're mapping it properly. There are ways. We're going to use Dropbox because it's one of the easiest to use. So what I want to do is I want to map my Dropbox location. I don't want to include the last backslash. I just want to include. And how do we get that? Well, if you're going to do a file path and you have a specific Dropbox, in this case, all I would want to do is just copy this right here. This is your Dropbox file location. That's all I want to do is just copy that. Once that's copied, I'm going to paste that right in here. That's important because we need to know the location where we're going to be sharing. So what I want to do is I want to build out a shared link. Now, a shared link is simply a file that's going to allow us to share, but we're going to do that behind the scenes. And what is a shared link? Well, it allows other people to share the link. So if we were to do it manually, I'd take this file, I'd right-click it, and then I'd click share, or actually I click copy Dropbox link. Copy Dropbox link. That's the one I would use, but I want to do that. I want to automate that. Then what I want to do is I want to take that link, I want to create a short link of it, and I want to get that short link to the user so that they can update that. Then what I want to do is I want to take a history. I want to know all the versions that were pushed, the date that it was pushed, the file name. I want to know the version that was pushed. I want to know the original location, the change log text, the text, all the text that was in the change log text, that's got to be updated. That's not correct. And then I want the download short link, right, and the short link ID. So we just got to save that. That's going to be wrong. I'll update the code. It's actually going to be, make sure that that's going to be located D11. I'll walk you through that and make that update. All right, so let's go ahead, continue into the code. So what do I want to do? The first thing what I want to do is I want to use Integromat. What that's going to do is push that update. So let's go through that. And again, what I want to do is we're going to use Integromat. It's something that I've been using a few times before. Integromat, I'll include the links down below, but Integromat's a great, basically what it does is allow you to create automations. When, especially in Excel, it's really powerful because once we get that information, we can take any information or send a trigger to this, and then based on that trigger, we can do lots of things. We can share files. There's literally hundreds of scenarios. So if we look and we create a scenario, right, and you want to know, you can work with it. So take a look at all these applications that you can work with. There's literally, I think, hundreds of them that you can work with. It's a really powerful tool. So what we want to do is we want to take a webhook, and then what we want to do is, so I'll show you this. So if I want to create a webhook, the first step is a webhook, because it is that webhook that we are going to take from Excel and send into, it's going to trigger our automation. So we're going to continue that. And now I've already built this already, so it makes it a little easier and the trainings go by. But basically, once we do that, you're going to create a custom webhook. Once you have that custom webhook, you want to add it. Click add, and then you want to put any name here. We'll just call it testing name, right? So any name, and click save. Then what you're going to do is you're going to automatically get a copy. You're going to automatically get a link. It'll assign a unique link. Once you have the link, click copy to address. Okay, so once we've received this webhook, what I want to do is I want to make sure to put that back inside our macro. That macro is going to then allow us to send, and then we can build out from that. And that's actually just what I've done. Let me go ahead and show you what I've actually done inside scenarios so that you can see how to do that for yourself. So let's take a look at the get shareable short link. This is a scenario that you can build out. And basically, let me walk you through this. What we're going to do is we're going to click edit, and I'll give you a brief walkthrough, and then we're going to go into detail. So basically what I want to do is I want to tell our macro to send some information through that webhook, and we've built that webhook inside that macro. So this is the macro here that we're going to build. This is the webhook that we're going to send. And what do we want to send? I want to send the Dropbox file location and Dropbox information upload. So we're going to send that information. Once it's inside, I want to send some specific information, a specific link to Dropbox. Dropbox is then going to convert it to a shared link. Remember, shared link, what is that shared link? Let me just show you what that would look like inside our folder. Again, that shared link is the same thing as if we click copy Dropbox link and we went into here and we press paste. That's the same thing. So that's all we need to do. So that's going to give us that shared link and allow anybody to share it. But I don't want to stop there. I actually want to do something with it. Once I get that shared link, I want to convert that to a short link. And Rebrandly is going to do that for us. Rebrandly is going to take care of that short link. It's going to convert that to a short link. And then what I want to do is I want to split. I want to do two things after that. One, I want to send a lot of the information to Google Sheets because it's Google Sheets that are going to record all the information and allow users, when they have their application, to check to see automatically through their own macros to see if an update's been made. And I also want to send some information back into the macro, back into your application to Excel so that we know information. So we're going to split that using a router, and we're going to use Integromat for that. Integromat's a great tool, and hopefully if you've followed any of the last trainings, it's going to allow us to create different scenarios. We're going to be using two scenarios in this, one to push those updates and one to pull the updates into the application. Okay, so inside Google Sheets, what are we going to do? We're going to have several information. I want to know the update time. I want to know the application name, the version, the download link, and the link ID. The link ID is going to be really helpful. If you want to build out, that link ID is going to allow you to know if the user has clicked a specific link or how many people. And of course, you can also build out to know if the applications have been installed. We're going to use that. So you're going to be creating a brand new Google Sheet. I'm going to assume you know how to create it. If not, of course, just go into your Google Drive and click Google Sheets and then new, and then just create a Google Sheet from a blank spreadsheet. That should be fine. All right, so let's get into the macro and take a look just how we did that. And I want to walk you through every step of this macro. So the first thing we want to do, this is the macro that we're going to be pushing the updates once we have it. And this is the macro that's going to stay inside your update manager. Okay, so the push updates, the first thing what I want to do is define the URL as a string and the JSON as a string. Dropbox location as a string. Now the Dropbox location, again, it's what I want to make sure is just this here. I only want to know this information here. I want to extract and I want to remove everything else. So the best way to do that is to know what we want to remove. What I want to remove is located in J5. That's our Dropbox location. So when I have this large link, I'm going to use the replace command inside our macro. And I'm going to take this full link, I'm going to look for this portion, and I'm going to replace it with absolutely nothing. In fact, actually, just the Dropbox part, I want the backslash, and I want that. I want to keep all that in there. So that's how we do this. So let's walk you through that macro, the steps of that macro. So we need to determine the Dropbox file link. Let's get out of there, escape out of there, back into the macro. And then what I want to do is I want to determine the file path, the application name, I need to know what version it is, the log text, we're going to make an update on that, the log text, the short link as a string, the link ID, and the response. The response is what we're going to get back from that. And I also wanted to mention the history row. I need to know what row we're on. The history row, that's the row that we're going to be making the updates there. And I also want to know the updated on as a date. We want to know that. And to mention the object, HTTP as an object, that's going to allow us to send the JSON. All right, with sheet 1, that's the one we're going to focus on. I wanted to mention the file path, that's going to be E4. I want to set the file path into E4. That's the long file path, all right? That's the one we're going to start out with, and that's the one that's going to help us create that shared file. I also wanted the Dropbox location in J5. That's the one we focused on here, right? We need to use that so that we can determine that. And I want the Dropbox file. That's the unique file. What I want to do, again, I want to know, I'm going to assume that this is our Dropbox file, and it's going to exclude that. So I got to do that inside VBA and basically exclude that. And we can use the replace command to do just that. The app name, that's going to be located in E6, and the update is on E8. And the version's on G8. So we've put all those into variables, and that's going to help us. Now keep in mind the Dropbox file, just what I have said. The replace, we're going to use two replace commands in this. The first place, I want to take that file path, and I want to remove the Dropbox location. So the best way to do that is to find the Dropbox location and replace it with nothing. That's a great way to do it. I also want to remove all the backslashes with forward slashes, right? I want to make sure that the backslashes are all taken away and replaced with forward slashes. Why is that? Because when I send something to Dropbox, Dropbox only accepts a specific format. So let me show you inside the application here, if we take a look inside the Dropbox, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this and take a look at that. When we have a Dropbox, notice it's only forward slashes. So that's what it's looking for. This is the format that it wants, right? So we need to follow that format. It's going to be the backslash. Your Dropbox location is not going to be included. It's only the forward slashes. So I need to take all those backslashes and replace them with forward slashes. So we can use the double replace to do both of those, right? The double replace can remove the Dropbox location. It can also replace that. So we've done just that here. So that's going to get us the information exactly what Dropbox wants in order to create that shared link. Okay, so we also have the history on sheet 2. I need to make an update here. E8, the changelog text is not an E8, of course. Where is that located? That's located in D11, so we'll make that update there. Make sure that, and also when we save it, we want to wrap that as false. Why is that? Because it's going to be a large text, right? So again, in A, we're going to put the updated, and that's going to go right here. It's pretty, I didn't use data mapping. A, we're putting the date, B, the version, all the pretty much kind of a standard information. Sheet 2 is going to equal all of that, the version, the file path location, the changelog text from D11. Then what I'm going to do is sheet 2, history row and history row, wrap text equals false. Why is that important? Because if I don't wrap text and I put this large amount of text, if I take this large amount of text here and I paste that inside, this is actually where it's going to go here. And what it's going to do is going to create that, and I really don't want that. So when I do wrap text through VBA, it's going to do basically just this, wrap text equals false. And so when I do that, I do it again, it's going to be, that's exactly what I want. Let me just copy and paste that so it's correct. And you see, so when we wrap text equals false, it's going to do the same thing. Right? It's going to make sure that the row is not expanded. We don't really need to see this. We just need to know it's there, and it's here, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so wrap text is false. That's going to make sure that that line doesn't, that row doesn't expand too much. Keeps it consistent to whatever it's currently at. Okay, so back into the macro. Now we have that. That's it with sheet 1. Okay, now we're ready to send the information. I want to start that whole process. So the best way to do that is we're going to set the object HTTP to create an object. We're going to send something, an MS XML2 server XML HTTP. That's important for us to send the information. We're going to determine the entire URL. Now this URL should contain all of the data that we want to send out. We want to send a lot of data out, so we want to do that. So the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to take that URL that we created from the webbook. Remember, we created it. It's the same thing here if we have here custom webbooks. Remember, we created that, and we're going to copy that. And what we want to do is we want to place that right inside our link. So we're going to place it right in here up to the question mark. So that's just what I've done. I've taken that short link and I've pasted it right in here. Next is all the information you want to send. So anything you want to send, the first thing you do is just create some type of a text that's going to help you define what it is. So you can create anything here, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is as long as you understand what it is. So in this case, I'm using pretty much the same as our variable. So Dropbox file location is going to be the Dropbox file. This is the variable that we're going to send with it. And make sure you do and this is going to separate that, and inside the URL is going to separate your variables. So next up, I want to send the updated on. And we're going to send that. This is the text that we're going to use. We're going to find that. And then the updated on is going to be the actual data, in this case, the date and time. Next up, I want to send the version, and then the version value, the app name, and then the app name value. So I'm going to send all that through the webhook. Then we're going to do object HTTP open. We're going to patch URL false. That's going to help us send. And then we want to set the content type as application JSON. You just pretty much have to copy and paste all this just as I have it here. It's fine. The details are not so important. We're going to send that JSON file, and then what we want to do is we want to determine if it's accepted or if we got an actual value. If the object HTTP response equals accepted, if it's just accepted, that means it was sent okay but nothing was received. So maybe yours was off. So notice that we have these, we can turn these on or off. If I turn this off, it's going to just come back with the response of accepted. So we know that it's been sent, but we didn't get something that's off. So make sure it's on. If you get something that response back says accepted, maybe it's off. So keep that in mind. It has to be on. All right, so if it's accepted, what I want to do is I want to go to not configured. So I'm just going to skip there, go to this not configured, and then give a message box saying your webhook was set properly, but the automation may have been turned off response. Just so that it's a little bit more information to help you and guide you to help create these automations. Okay, but assuming it does not say accepted, then it is configured. Then what I want to do is I want to get the response, and I want to add something to that. I want to add the response HTTPS and the response text. Why do I want to do that? Well, because the response back, I want to get that link. I want to get this link here. This link here. Notice in Google it's fine, but in Google our response looks just like this. I really don't want that. I want the entire file link. I don't want just this. So I need to add something to that. It's fine here in Google because we're not using it so much. We're going to add this at the end for the user, so it doesn't matter. But if it's not, we want to make sure to add that. So for example, in our actual link, I want to make sure that we have actually the full link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what the response is, which is this, and then I'm going to add this HTTPS to it. So I want to add that to it. So the best way to do that is add it inside the response. So that's just what I've done here. In the response here, it's HTTPS and then the response, because the response is going to be just that. It's going to be that short link. So that's what I want to do, but I want more than response. It's also going to be the link ID. What is going to be in that response? What I want to get back is two things. I want everything else I know, but I want this information and I want the link ID. The short link ID is going to help us in the future if we want to add on to this. So this is the information I want to get back. So I'm going to make sure that our response includes the short link and the link ID. Of course, I'll show you that, but inside the VBA portion. So both of those things are going to be inside this response text. Both of those things are going to be inside this string variable. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use a separator that I understand to separate between the short link and the link ID. And that separator is going to be this dash. So once I have this dash, I'm going to use the left command. It's going to take that long information and it's going to separate it. So it's going to pull whatever's on the left of this, -1, because I don't want to include this dash. And it's going to put that entire link, which is going to be this plus the rebrand. It's going to put that in a short link. Then what I want to do is I want the link ID. That's going to be the right side of it. The right side based on this dash and based on the entire length of that minus whatever is to the in string minus where this is located. That's going to basically extract the link ID. So again, we're extracting two things, the short link and the link ID. Once I have those, I'm going to put those located in F and G. So that's it. We have our row. Our row is going to be the first available ones. I'm going to put them in F and G. So that's going to take care of that. So now we have everything information. That's all we needed. And then what I want to do is I want to clear, once I have those in sheet 2, I want to clear the contents in sheet 1. Once we've sent that update, I want to clear this, 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 and this. And also probably you want to clear D11 as well. So you may want to add D11 through H25. Remember, when you're clearing out the contents of a merged cell as in this, you need to include all the cells. So in this case, that would be D11 through H25. So you'd want to add that on to this clear contents. And then of course the message box saying the update's pushed successfully. That's it. That's all we need to push out the information. So let's take a look at what that looks like inside Integromat. So we go into the web application. I'm going to pull up this scenario here. All right, the best thing to do when you're just testing it out, you can click run once before turning it on. What that's going to do is automatically wait for that. We can go in back to the application. We can click push update, and that's going to send that information. We take a look back inside our browser. We can see that it's going to go through all those steps here, and we can watch just the steps. So now it's completed. If we take a look in our application, we see the update push was successful. And now we can walk through all the steps inside that to see just what happened. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. We're going to close this out here and zoom in. So we take a look here inside there. We see that the webhook was sent there. And we click OK, and then we take a look inside Dropbox. If we want to know what actually happened, we're going to look. We see all the details here. It's going to be kind of detailed, but basically what I want to do is inside Dropbox, I'm going to take that Dropbox file location. We have lots of information. Remember, we sent, these are the 4 things we sent. We sent the Dropbox file location, updated in the version and the app name. We sent all that information. But as far as Dropbox, I only want the Dropbox file location. Only. Remember, inside of macro, we sent multiple. We sent Dropbox file. We sent those 4 things, updated on the version and that, but we only want the Dropbox. I'm going to take that from Dropbox, right? And here, remember it's the link that I just said. We replaced it, and it doesn't have that Dropbox. It's just have this, just our file location. So what I sent was exactly like this. What I sent, remember, is if we click on this, let's go ahead and click on this, is just this information right here. Starting with the backslash here, and then all we did was replace those backslashes with forward slashes. So that's what we sent. So that's exactly what is included inside that. So once we send that, the result is going to be that short link. So let's go ahead and cancel that. Then we're going to move to Rebrandly. And if we take a look in Rebrandly, and we see exactly what we want. Is we want the destination. Rebrandly is a brand new one. When we click that, we can create Rebrandly. Rebrandly is a great short link. We went over it last week, but again, Rebrandly is going to allow you to create short links. You can take any link. If you look it up on the internet, you'll see Rebrandly is going to allow you to create those short links automatically. Amazing tool. Rebrandly. You can check all about it. It's really cool. They've got a great API that lets us do a lot of work with it. So what do I want to do in Rebrandly? Of course, we're going to add this. Once you create an account with Rebrandly, all you need to do, it's free, of course. Click add new. You're going to add that connection. How would you do that? How would you create that brand link? Let me just go through. At any point inside your scenario, if you just click this, then you click Rebrandly, or you browse for it inside this shirt, you click. Then what we want to do is we want to create a link. Create a link. That's the option that we're looking for. Okay. Notice it says create a link down here. Here we're creating, let's zoom in, create an updated shared link. Then we want to take that shared link, we want to create a link from it. You can walk through those steps. Once I have that, what do I want to do? I want to take the download URL. That download URL is going to come directly from Dropbox. Notice we sent it to Dropbox first, so we got to get some results. What are results? We were looking for this, the download URL. This is the one I want. If we look in here, let's look in here to see what happened. This is exactly the history of what we just sent. Dropbox file, this was what's created. This is what we sent. So this is exactly what we sent to Dropbox. All of this here, this is what we sent to Dropbox. This was the result. This is what we got out of. This is our shared link. That's what Dropbox gave us. So the input and the output. So we take that output and then we go into Rebrandly. And again, Rebrandly has its own. Rebrandly, we have again inside our input here, it's converted it automatically. Then we got our output. What is our output here? Our output is right here. This is our short link. I want to take that output and I want to go a few different places. So again, the first place is in our Excel sheet. So if we want to create a Google Sheet, we're going to create this router. This router is going to let us do, it's right here, flow control, and we want to go click router. If you want to do two different things, you click router. So router is going to let us do multiple things. So I clicked on that, and once we click on router, I'm going to create the Google Sheets. How do we do that? Again, just click on here, locate Google Sheets in the search, locate here. What do we want to do? We want to add a row. So I clicked add a row. Once we have an add a row, what do we want to add to that row? We click on that. It's going to ask us what Excel spreadsheet do we want. We want to select a spreadsheet. So which one? We're going to click one that I've already created, and we're looking for something called application version history. So once we locate it here, let's zoom out a little bit. Application version history is the one I'm looking for right here. So once I find that application, then what I want to do, I want to locate the sheet. I have just one sheet. Tables have headers. Yes, my table does have headers. Then what do we want to do? So then I want to update the date and time. I want to update. So then I want to take the information. This is going to come from our webhook. Remember, we sent multiple information. So we want to put the updated. I want to put the updated there. What do I want to put in the application column? In the application column, again, I want to take it from our and put in the app name here. Put it here. What about the version? Again, from our webhook, we want to put the version number here. What about the download link? The download link, well, that's going to come from our Rebrandly. So that's going to come from brandish, not the ID, but what I want is the short link. So that's going to come right here called the short URL. That's the one I want to put here. And what about the link ID? The link ID is going to come also from Rebrandly. It's going to be here, short link ID. There, that's all I did, and click OK. So we can delete that. Obviously, I've got it here, so we don't need it. If you want to delete it, just click delete module, because I've already done it right here. And if we take a look inside this, we can see all those steps exactly as I just walked you through it. So again, we're going sheet one, yes, updated on app name and the 2 items from Rebrandly. That's it. Nothing in the rest of the columns, but you can have a lot of data. So that's how we got it in Excel. So now that every time we run it, it's going to add a new information right here. Great, right? So we got that. What else do we need? So now what I want to do is I also want to get some information back into our Excel. So what do I want? Again, I want the 2 things that I mentioned to you when we were walking through the macro. In that response, I want 2 things. What are those 2 things? Those 2 things are, again, the short link and the link ID. The short link we're going to build out. We're going to add this, and I want the link ID. So that's just what we do. So then what I want to do is I want to create something called a response. So how do we do that? I would click here and I would click webhooks, and then what I want is a webhook response. And what do I want in the webhook response? I want this. I want two things. I want the short link coming, and that's going to come from Rebrandly. So I want this short URL. Then what I want to do is I want to put a dash, I want to put a separator, and then I want this short ID. So that's it. That's the information that I want to come back in Excel. I'm going to cancel that. We don't need that. I've already created that. So I'm going to delete that module. This is what I've done. This is the one, short URL and mirror. So that's going to come back into it. So whatever's the response, notice it says webhook response. This is the response that's going to come right back here. There we go. So now we've walked through the macro. So now we know, we understand how that, and now all we need to do is great. So now we understand how we get the information back into Excel. We understand how we get the information in Google Sheets. Okay, that's great. But how do we actually get a user to update? That's the part I'm going to walk you through right now. All right, well, let's take a look at that. Now, here's back in our application. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our application. Of course, you can add this to any application you want. So I'll pull up our Customer Manager. Customer Manager is a fantastic application. I created a training on this a few months back. If you haven't seen that, I'll include the links down below if you're interested in how to program and create this Customer Manager application. I will include the link to the YouTube down below so you can watch this. Okay, so basically the idea is I really want to track four different fields really. So actually it's a total of 5 information, but including the message. So this is something you'll want to add to your applications. All you need to do is add just a little bit to the table. We need to know the last update date. We need to know the version number. We also want to know the download link. We want to know the file name. Remember, and I also want a message. I want a message. So this is simply a custom message. So all we're going to do is say equals to version, and then whatever's in B17 is now available. Click download and update. So I want to create this pop-up here, this particular shape, and all this is a shape. So if we insert a shape here, and I want to create a shape, you can create any shape just like this, and then all we need to do is equal that shape to whatever is located in our cell. So that's just what I did here. So then of course we can customize it however we want. So that's just what I did here. Now I only want this shape to appear on our application when there's an update available. Then what I want to do is I want to have you assign this to a macro and have the user click on it and update, just as I demonstrated before, and I'll show you again. So how do we do that? Well, we just need that module that I told you before. Notice that we have a module inside this customer application called app update macros here. This is the same macros that we've called, I don't want to confuse you, so we're going to change this just as we did. We're going to call this poll macros. It's the same macro, poll macros. So just so you know, poll macros. It's identical to this. So the reason is I'm going to give you this workbook here. So all you need to do is take poll macros and drag this into your own application, or you can program it yourself. And I've just did it here. I've already have it here. So that's all you need to do is just drag this module inside, and then you have all the macros available. So let's walk through these actually. There really is 2 macros. There's 2 macros. One is simply going to check for updates. So all you want to do is take this macro or create your own and put it on the workbook event. So when I open that workbook, I want to run this every single time, called check for updates. If we take that comment out of there like that, it's going to run every single time on update. If there's no updates, nothing's going to happen. It's going to check. So first thing I want to do is I want to check for updates. I'll keep this commented out for now because we can run it manually, but basically when we do that, let's take a look at some of the macros. So I'm going to go into the module and we have some information. So the first thing is check for updates, and the next thing is just to actually make those updates. So let's walk through the check for updates. The first thing what I want to do is I want to run this object HTTP. Notice we've defined some of the same things, URL, almost exactly the same. We have some new ones here called new workbook name and certain strings that we'll go over. But basically check for updates. So what do I want to do for that? I want to first make sure the response is empty. I just want to clear that out in case there. And then I want to set the last update date to whatever's in B16. So every time we make an update, this is going to change. So every time there's an update, this should change. And of course, these columns are hidden from the user. So every time we make an update, it's going to change. So the last update was on October 3rd, so that's fine. We can set that to any date we want. All right, so let's just set it back to, let's just change it back to 2 so we can get an automatic update. I'm going to reverse that. And the last one was, let's just say version 1.4, but that won't matter. So And of course, I want to download the link. Where am I going to download and all that information? So let's walk through the macro. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to set the object, again, creating an object. I want to clear all the contents from B17 to 19. I want to clear everything, the version, the download link, and the file name, because that's going to be updated. Assuming that there's a new update, I want to clear those fields, and I want to have the new version, the new download link, and the new file name. I want to have it all in here, okay? So, but if there is no new version, nothing's going to happen. So let's do that. So the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to do update. I want to hide that update message. Sheet 1 update message visible. That is the shape. That's the name that I've assigned to the shape called update message. And I've assigned that name so that I can work with it. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to hide it. The first thing I want to do is just hide it. That way it's only going to appear if there's updates available. So now what we want to do is a brand new webhook. And let's take a look at that automation just to see how it works. So back in our scenarios, we're done with this one. I've shown you everything. So we're going to go in scenarios, and I'm going to show you. We don't need to save any changes that we made there. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have something called update check. And basically all we're going to be doing here is we're going to go send a webhook, information to webhook. We're going to send the last update date. What I want to do is I want to send this information, the last update, I want to send it to Google Sheets. And if I find a new date in our table that's above that, higher than that, or greater than that, later than that, I should say, I'm just going to look, I want to perform a search on this. If we find a date that's later than this, I want to assume that, go ahead and change these dates to, let's say, let's just go 1 and then 2. We'll just update those to 2 so we have everything in order on a daily basis. 2 and then 3. Okay, so let's just say that this was 1.6. That's fine. We can leave it out there. Okay, so I want to know anything to check, to run a check this entire column. If for some reason the last update was on October 2nd and there's a brand new update on October 3rd, I want to then let the user know to make the update. Notice we have October 3rd here. Okay, that's what I'd like to check for. So that's what we're going to do inside the webhook. So in this case, our webhook, again, we've created another webhook. If we take a look at this, we've got our link here. And what do I want in that? I want to basically send just one thing. What do I want to send? I want to send the last update date. So that's just that's why we defined it here in B16. And all we're going to do is send it. The integramat is going to take care of the rest. It's going to determine whether that value is true, whether we do have a date in our table that is greater than our last update. So how do we do that increment? And that's part of Google Sheets. So again, we're going to use the same Google Sheets. We're going to attach our Google Sheets just as we did before, and I showed you, and then we're going to do some actions. So let's take a look. Again, we're going to test a Google Sheets. We're going to click the same spreadsheet application, sheet 1, and our table contains header, so everything else is the same. Then we're going to focus on a column range. I want to use something called search rows. So when you connect Google Sheets, it's going to ask you, what do you want to do? You want to search rows. In this case, search rows. We're performing a search. And that column range is going to be A to Z. Then I want to run a filter. What do we want to filter? We're going to filter based on our update date and time. That's the one we want to filter on. We're going to use the value. What do we want to do? We want it later than. We have lots of options here. Let's take a look at all those options. We have does not equal, we have greater than, date time operator, but I want later than. So we're looking for date time operators, and then we're looking for later than. Later than, that's the one we want to choose. Later than what? Later than the last update date. This is the information we're going to bring in from our webhook. That's the information. So I want that. And I want it descending, the order descending, and I want it the order by update date and time. That's the order that I want, right? Descending the highest low. And I only want one return, right? I only want one row. If there's one row, I don't want return more rows. I'm only looking for one application to download, one row, and I want formatted strings. So that's it. So again, the most important thing, we're going to run a filter based on the first column, which is the update date and time. I want to know any rows in that filter, specific row, the first row that comes up that is later than the last update date. Then I want the order, the search order descending. I want the highest to the lowest. And then I also want the update date and time date. That's the order by. I want everything ordered by that. And then a formatted value. That's it. And the maximum number of return rows to 1. That's it. So once I have that, what do I want to do? Assuming that there's results, I want to bring them back into a webhook. Remember, now we're doing a webhook response. We want a response. Send something back to the user. What do we want to send back? I want to send back multiple fields. And if you want a list of the fields, you just click in here. So what do I want? I want the version number, with a comma, separated by a comma. Then again, I want that full link. So we're going to add again HTTP. I guess we could have added HTTPS. Both will work. HTTP and HTTPS both work just fine. Either one is fine. The download link, right? We want to not only the download link, but we need to add this to the beginning of it to make sure that it's the full link, because notice the download link doesn't have that. And then I want the application, the name of the application here in application B. So I want column C, column D, and column B, and I want separated all by column. So again, we want the information. Again, we want version C, we want the download link, and we want the application. We want all that information in our response. That's it. So once we get the response, so then what we do is, again, we do the same steps and we get a response. And if our response is blank, it would end up looking something like this, comma, HTTP comma. So that means if there's no output, we want to make sure it does not equal that, because if it equals that, that means nothing. There is no response. There's nothing. There are no updates. There's no results. So if there's no results, there's nothing to do. So then if there is a response, in other words, if it is something other than this, that means there is an update available. Just put there is, if update is available, it will be something other than that, other than this. Okay, it'll include all the values, right? What's it going to include? It's going to include everything in here. It's going to include all this, the version information. If there's a value, if it's nothing, it's going to only include this and the commas. Okay, so that's important to understand that if there's values, it's going to include something other than that. Okay, so now what I want to do is simply parse that text. Remember, our response contains those three items. It contains these three items. So I need to parse them. I need to extract the version. I need to extract the download link, and I need to extract the application. Now they're all separated by commas, so we can easily run that through an array. So how do we do that? Well, again, we've noticed up here, we've dimensioned the response string as a string. We've opened it up here like this with the brackets. So the best way to do that is to split that. And once we have it, so now we have our response in a text string. We know it contains values. We know there's an update. Now I'm going to define the response string. I'm going to split that response based on that delimiter, which is the comma. So now what we can do is we can loop through all of the values based on that. In this case, there's 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a loop for the response number, which is the whole number starting at 0, going all the way to 2. In this case, 0, 1, and 2, 3 of them. The low bound, L bound, would be the lower bound of our array. Response string, in this case, whatever it is, 0, all the way to the upper bound, in this case 2, because we have 3. So it's going to go from 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull in, I want all that information. And I want, where do I want to put that information? I want to put the first value here, the second value here, and the third value here. I want to take that information, I want to put it all in here. So 17, 18, and 19. So the best way to do that, we know that our array starts in 0. So 17 plus 0 is 17. So we just have to add 1 for that. It's going to automatically add as we're loop. So again, B, sheet 1, B is 17 plus the response number. Our first one's going to be 0, second one's going to be 1, last one's going to be 2. So if we want 17, 18, and 19 rows, we can fill that in. So again, what do we want in there? The response string plus the response number. This is going to basically take those 3 items and put them into 3 different cells, 1, 2, 3. So that's our response. That's how we're going to get that. Okay, so now that we have those, all we need to do is let the user know, yeah, there is an update available. So I'm going to take that shape and make sure it's displayed. That update message visible equals true. We've already assigned a macro to it. If we right click that, click assign macro, we see that the macro, that's the macro we're going to go next. Update the application. That's the one we're going to go next. So when they click that one, it's going to update automatically. What do we want to happen? When we click that, basically what I want to do is I want to take all the data from this workbook and make sure that it, from their old workbook, and make sure it gets automatically placed into the new workbook. So what do we have? We have customers, we have contacts, we have invoices, and we have work orders. I want to take all of that data and I want to make sure to update the new workbook with it, and then close the new workbook and delete the old, or rename the old one. That's just what we're going to do inside this macro. So this is the actual. So when they click that button, it's going to update automatically. How do we do that? Well, the first thing what we want to do is we want to set this workbook. I want to download the file. We got to download it. How do we do that? We can use follow hyperlink. So if I use follow hyperlink and I determine this, I know that this is the hyperlink. So if I click there, it's automatically going to download that file. Okay, so now we have that. Of course, this is an old information, so we won't download that. That's not going to work because it's older, but we'll make sure to update that. I'll make sure, because when we run it, it's going to give us a brand new link, and that's what we want. So the first thing is I want to wait. Next thing, I want to give it some time. I'm going to use this application wait now. I'm going to give it time to download. So now we've got it to download. Now what I want to do is I want to assign the application name to whatever's in B19, right? B19 holds our application name. I want that to put that inside a variable. Next up, I want to determine, I need to open it up, but I don't know where they've downloaded it. Most likely they've downloaded it based on their default download location. So how do we extract that default download location? We can use this, the directory, environment, user profile, and downloads. This is generally in those, at least as far as a PC is concerned, the location of their downloads. That's where certainly mine is. So that's going to give us our downloads. Of course, if it's not available, we can have them browse to a location. That's fine too. Then we're going to use app name and the VB directory. As long as it doesn't equal empty, that means they've downloaded it complete. Assuming that they've downloaded it complete already, we can set some information. The first thing I want to do is the new application file path is going to be, of course, that download location. That full file name is going to give us the download path and location of that application. That's what I want. And of course, we're going to set the old workbook to the active workbook. That's this existing workbook. That's this. I want to set this as the old workbook. So once we do that, then I want to set the new workbook is going to be the old workbook name. Set the name of the new workbook the same as the old one, right? Because I want the customer to be working in the same exact name of the workbook. I don't want the name to change. So what we need to do is determine the current name. The new name is the same as the old name, basically. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do the old workbook path. I want to know the path of the old workbook, because what I want to do is I want to take this workbook that they've just downloaded and I want to put it back in whatever path they're working in. That way they continue to open up and work on their application. So we're going to take it and put it in that path. So the new workbook, the old workbook path is going to be equal to old workbook path. That's what we want. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to delete the old version. Okay, in case it exists. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take that old version. We're not going to delete it. We're going to rename it. But just in case that rename exists already, we want to delete it. So again, what I want to do is I want to take their old workbook. Let's say this is their old workbook. I want to save this as a unique name, just so that they have a backup. So we want to save it. How do we get a unique name? Well, the best thing is a way to just add the date and year onto it. So that's just what I've done. I've given it a unique name called old version, format, date, and that's going to format the date based on a format, and what that's going to do is going to create that. But if for some reason it exists, we need to kill it first. So if it exists exactly that name, we do want to kill it first. So the best way to do that is to wrap that on air resume next, and on air go to 0. So this is going to kill it, basically meaning deleting it. Once we're sure that it doesn't exist with these lines of code, we can then save the workbook as the old version and then the format date. That's going to rename the old workbook in the path, okay? So now we've got the old workbook renamed. Now what we're doing is we want to check on to make sure we're going to open the new workbook. We have the new workbook, application, workbooks open, new workbook path. That's going to open that workbook, and that's based on the path in their download. So once that workbook is open, we need to define that. The old workbook name equals directory of the old workbook name. So I want to get that old workbook name. And we're going to set the new workbook, that's a new workbook, to the application name. Setting that new workbook, right? The new workbook is, we just opened it, right? We've defined it up here. We know the new workbook. We're going to set it to workbook's application name. We've already defined the application name based on B19. B19, this is the name that you've decided to send. So that's the name of it. So now once we have that name, we can move on. Now what we want to do is basically just simply copy. We've defined new workbook. We've defined the old workbook. Now all we need to do is transfer the data. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take data from the old workbook and put it into the new workbook. And we do that with just 4 lines of code, depending upon how many databases you have. The new workbook sheets work order range A3 to a large value. You could use also and LX to make this dynamic, but I didn't. And to the old workbook. So all we're going to do is going to take all the work orders and copy them from the old workbook into the new workbook. We're going to do the same thing for invoices. We're going to do the same thing for contacts and customers, basically transferring the data. Once we have all that, I want to close the old workbook, right? We've already saved it as we've already used saved as here. So we could just close it and we don't need to save it. False means not saving it because we've already saved it. Now the new workbook, I want to save that new workbook, the one they've just created. We've already brought in all the data from it. I want to take that and I want to save it as the old workbook path, right? This way the new workbook will replace the old workbook path. Since we've saved the old workbook out into a different name, different path, we can do that because it doesn't exist. Old workbook path. Next up, what I want to do is I want to update the updated on. I want to update B16 right here. I want to update the last update to the current date and time. That's going to do it right there. What else do I want to do? Then I also want to hide the shape. We've just made the update, so there's no reason. I want no reason to continue to show this shape. We need to then hide it. So once we've hidden it, we do just that. Next up, I want to give them a message. Your application has been updated. Thank you. That is it. That's all the macros we have to do. So now, basically, when they click on this, so the first thing we need to do is just check for updates. So we're going to run this macro, check for updates. This is the same macro that's going to run when the workbook's open. So we're going to run that macro. It's going to let us know. It's going to look for those macros. It's going to say version 1.6 is now available. It's got the new information. It just loaded in here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click on that. It's going to open up. It's going to download that application automatically. It's going to look for that. It's going to then install that back into the application. It's now going through the process of copying over the data. And now we got the message. Your application has been updated. Thank you. That's it. That's all we need to do to automatically update on a single click. That's your one-click push, one-click updates. Thanks so much. I hope you appreciated this training. I create these each and every Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you'd like to support us, go ahead and click on the link for the 150 applications. That's just 37 cents per application. I can't wait to show you what's coming next week. Thanks again for everything, your comments, your shares, your likes. I respond to each and every comment each and every day. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.